Hey y'all, it's me, Kevvie! So for the past couple of months, a trend has been going around BookTube, vlogging the Agatha Christie reading experience and putting together like a conspiracy board to try to solve whodunit. Since I have a pretty solid track record with solving these books, I wanted to see if I could do it on camera. The book I've chosen to read for this challenge is Murder in Mesopotamia. I know nothing about this book other than that it is a Poirot set in Iraq and there's a murder. Oh, I'm so excited. Let's get right into reading. Alright, so I've read the first 6 chapters and I already have some suspicions. So let's look at everything I've got so far. The book started out with a foreword, and what was so interesting to me was that this foreword was written by one of the characters in the book, Dr. Giles Riley. He was explaining how the book came to be written because he asked our narrator, Amy, to write down the events of the book. I thought that was really cool, having a foreword written by a character rather than somebody else. I don't know if I've seen that done before. Dr. Riley said that our narrator, Amy, would be the best person to write this story because she wasn't directly a part of it. So I think that means it's safe to assume she did not do it. And now in the foreword, Dr. Riley says he did not touch a word of Amy's manuscript. He just added an additional first chapter, which was a letter that Amy was writing to a Sister Kershaw at St. Christopher's Hospital in London. Dr. Riley said he thought that chapter was necessary, that information was important. So is something pertaining to St. Christopher's Hospital going to be relevant to the plot? I don't know. But so I put it up there just in case. Now anyway, we've got our narrator, Nurse Amy Leatherin, and she came to Iraq with the Kelseys as a personal nurse for Mrs. Kelsey, who was traveling with her baby and needed someone to assist with that. Oh yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's look at some of these less relevant characters that I put over here. The first one is, of course, Dr. Riley. I've said before, he's the doctor. He meets Amy on the boat going to Baghdad, and she says he's really funny. She also learns he has a daughter named Sheila. When we meet Sheila, Amy doesn't like her because she's too cool and sarcastic. But she tells us a story that might be significant about her and another character, Flight Lieutenant Jervis. We don't know anything about Jervis yet, other than that he spent time with Sheila and isn't staying at this campsite. Then we've got the Kelseys. There's Major and Mrs. Kelsey and their baby. The Kelseys offer to pay Amy's way back after the trip, but just so happened Dr. Riley found a job for her. An acquaintance of his, Dr. Liebman, reached out to him and is like, my wife, there's something wrong with her. I need a nurse to come and take care of my wife. So Amy's like, sure, I'll go do that. Let's do it. But before she goes, she meets one more character, John Pennyman, who's a friend of the Kelseys. He also knows Miss Louisa Liedner and has quite a few things to say about her. But the biggest takeaway from their conversation is that while he was there, he got a sense that something was off. Specifically, he said they all passed the butter too politely. So anyway, Amy finally heads to their campsite, which is called Tel Yarimja, which is where they're doing this expedition. Dr. Liedner is leading this expedition on behalf of an American museum. Amy has described him as nervous, hesitating, helpless, and worships the ground she walks on. She being, of course, his wife. Louisa. So now Louisa seems to be like the central character to the plot currently, probably most likely going to become the victim. Louisa suffers from fancies and nervous terrors, She's odd and a champion liar, is referred to as Lovely Louise, and allegedly causes quarrels. Next, we have Mr. and Mrs. Mercado. Joe Mercado, I don't know a whole lot about yet. They said he has an odd beard and walks with a queer limp. And when he was supposed to be working, his wife actually found him sitting and talking to Louisa. And then when he was caught, he was very, embarrassed and stammery, so that implies something's going on there. Mrs. Mercado, we don't know a whole lot about, other than that she hates Louise and has terrible manners. I'm skipping that card on purpose for now. I'll come back to her. Then we had Father Lavigny, a French monk from Carthage. While many of the people on this expedition have worked together before, Father Lavigny is new because he's replacing Dr. Bird, who was ill. And aside from Louisa, he has the largest room, and he is there to translate tablets. Mr. Emmett, we know nothing about, just that he's American and quiet and polite. Richard Carey is an architect and obvious love interest, but Amy also says he's on the verge of snapping and looks as if he were a soldier going into battle knowing he was going to die. Mr. Reitner, I know nothing about except that he looks like a pig. And then Bill Coleman seems to be Dr. Leadner's assistant. Oh, that lighting is much better, but I'm not doing this whole thing again. So he looks like Dr. Leadner's assistant, but he's also self-proclaimed excellent forger. He has feelings for Dr. Riley's daughter Sheila and is described as a stupid sheepdog wagging its tail. Also important to note that Bill Coleman is Amy's first suspect. She thinks perhaps some of these terrors could have been induced by a prank, and Bill seems like a boy who would pull pranks. Now the last character I need to describe is Miss Johnson. Her job is described as bottle washer, and I don't know if that's supposed to mean something or if she's literally washing bottles. I don't know. I couldn't tell ya. But anyway, I am very suspicious of Miss Johnson. For starters, Agatha Christie has been very heavy-handed in letting us know that Miss Johnson is secretly a man cross-dressing. She's matronly, but also mannish, has a deep voice, is terribly ugly, and wears a skirt with a man's cut. So this Miss Johnson character is either trans, meaning queer, meaning Christie hates them and therefore is the killer, or Miss Johnson is a man in disguise, using put-on femininity to get closer to Louisa. Yeah, so I don't trust her. Now let's take a quick look at these clues. So they gave us a map of the house in the book, which was really helpful. It shows not just all the rooms, but also who's living in each room. The entire building is built around a courtyard. All of the rooms have doors that open into the courtyard and windows facing into the courtyard. The only exceptions are in the south ones, which were built first, where there are windows on either side and a couple of rooms that open into other rooms in that row. There's also a stairway going to the roof, so I'm certain that the roof is going to be significant. Perhaps that's where a body is found or something. So back when Amy was meeting Sheila, Sheila described an encounter with Louisa. When Sheila and Flight Lieutenant Jervis made a trip out to the expedition site, I guess the boy who usually announces people wasn't there, so they just walked in, and Louisa saw Jervis's shadow and screamed. Now, I don't know who Louisa thought she saw, but clearly she is scared of some man. This is reinforced later when Amy and Louisa are getting to know each other, and Louisa asks if Amy saw any men on the train with her coming to their town. And then from Mrs. Mercado, we get a description of some of the terrors that Louisa has been experiencing. First, there was tapping on her window. Then another night there was a hand with no arm attached. And then finally she saw a yellow face pressed against the window. But when she got up to take a closer look, it was gone. So yeah, based on what we know of these characters and the clues, right now my money is on Miss Johnson. She may not be the one who does the actual killing, but she is certainly the one who Louisa is afraid of. But then the follow-up question is, who is she? The most likely possibility I can think of right now is that Miss Johnson is actually Dr. Bird. That would explain his absence on this trip, and also like all of those mannish things. So yeah, I think that Miss Johnson is Dr. Bird and that Louisa is afraid of him / her. Oh God. Oof. I mean, from that queer perspective, not loving this, but otherwise I'm enjoying it so far. I'm excited to see what happens next. So I'm gonna go keep reading. Bye. Alright, y'all, I've read through chapter 13. There's been a murder, Louise is dead, and Poirot is on the case. Let's go through all my new notes before I hang them up. So Amy, our narrator, is scared of Father Levigny because he's a monk and a foreigner. But also, how do we know he's a monk? So far, we just have his word for it. I wonder if maybe he isn't what he appears to be. Also, they said his whole purpose being there is translation, but apparently he's not very good at it. So yeah, I'm becoming suspicious of him too. Louise is being described as a dangerous woman and ruthless. The monk is being called lazy. He sleeps all afternoon. Miss Johnson apparently hero worships Dr. Liedner, like is obsessed with him. She knows every site Liedner has ever dug and what the results of every dig were. Probably, I would guess, because she was there. But then one thing that sort of seems to be in hindrance of my theory is that Miss Johnson has been with them at these digs for the past 7 years. So either this is a long con, or this isn't Dr. Bird, because they would have been at the investigation site at the same time, you know? I don't know. We hear that Dr. Liedner doesn't like finding gold, because when someone does find gold, they have to pay the workmen who find it the weight of the object in gold to prevent them from stealing said object. So finding gold is expensive. So then one night, Louise hears a scratching on her wall, which is the wall that borders the Antica room. They go out there and they find Father Levigny there. He's apparently also heard footsteps and then saw a light in the Antica room. But of course, once they're there, there's nobody there except for him. Did he really see anything, or was he just covering for himself? Also, there is a man from the nearby town who was caught by Louise and Amy peering into the campsite and then was later seen speaking to Father Levigny. There's also a lot of question about the appearance of this man because both Amy and Father Levigny describe this figure to Poirot, and their descriptions are completely opposite of each other. One says he's short, one says he's tall, one says he's thin, one says he's fat. Like, I wonder, was it even the same man they were thinking of? Like, I don't know. Oh, and then Louise decides to show Amy the Antica room and some of the objects they keep in there. One of them is a beautiful gold dagger with blue gemstones in the hilt. So that seems like they're obviously setting it up to be the murder weapon. But also while they're in there, they look at this golden goblet and Louise sees that there's wax on it, meaning that somebody has been in that room and their candle dripped on the goblet. So I don't know what that means. It's just something that happened. Then Amy finally finds out why Louise has been so afraid. So here's the tea. We all know that Mrs. Liedner's first husband died in the war, but now we find out the circumstances. Apparently, he wasn't a soldier out on the front. He was a German spy. And Louise, being the American patriot that she is, reports him, and he is executed. But what she doesn't find out till many years later, she meets a new guy and is considering things with him, and she receives a threatening letter from her dead husband. She asks her father about the business, and he reveals that he escaped the execution. So her husband is still out there. They said allegedly he died in a train wreck or something, but the body was disfigured. There's no way of knowing for sure. So basically, yes, this man is still alive and threatening her. But then that means that she's now a bigamist. So when Louise finally does get married, she gets even more letters from this man. They say as follows: "You have disobeyed. Now you cannot escape. You must be Frederick Bosner's wife only. You have got to die." They don't hear anything for a while, and then she gets another letter. "I have not forgotten. I am making my plans. You have got to die. Why did you disobey?" And shortly after that letter, there is an attack on her life. While she is sleeping, someone breaks into their home and turns on the gas. Luckily, she wakes up in time and is able to smell it and get to safety. But then, of course, she's freaked the fuck out, and she's like, "Bitch, we need to get the fuck out of here." So her husband is like, "Sure, come with us to our gig out east, and then afterwards go to London or Paris or something." So she goes out to the desert thinking she's safe here, and then she receives another letter. "You thought you could escape. You were wrong. You shall not be false to me and live. I have always told you so. Death is coming very soon." And she receives one final letter a few days before Amy joins them, which is only 3 words saying, "I have arrived."
Mother has arrived.
So now we have a very clear motive for why she is going to be killed. On the one hand, Louise gave her first husband up to the American government to be executed. So he has a very strong motive to want revenge against her. And at the same time, she's also now a bigamist. She's gone and married someone else while still being married to this man who is still alive. So lots of reasons for him to want her dead. But it could also be a motive for Dr. Liedner to want her dead, because without his knowledge, he's been brought into bigamy. That could ruin his reputation. So it would make sense for him to want her dead too. And then after Louise explains all of this to Amy, she says to her, "Even when you arrived, I was suspicious. I thought you might be a man in disguise." So I see that Christie is already planting this idea that our killer could be a man cross-dressing, which still fits with my theory about Miss Johnson. Louise didn't realize the cross-dresser was already there. And then the bitch is dead. Yes, Louise is murdered. Surprisingly not with the golden dagger. No, just hit in the head. And I have all of their locations, which I will mark up there. For now, I'll have it up here. So Dr. Liedner was on the roof. Mr. Emmett was in the courtyard for most of the day, but for a couple minutes at a time would go up to the roof, and one stayed up there as long as 10 minutes. Mr. Mercado was in his laboratory. Mrs. Mercado was in her bedroom washing her hair. Miss Johnson was in the living room. Mr. Reeder was in the dark room. Father Leveny was in his bedroom working. Richard Carey was at the dig site, so not near when it happened. Bill Coleman was out in town, also not nearby when it happened. And our narrator, the nurse, was in bed. Now, looking at the staff, the cook was outside the archway at the entrance, talking to the guards, and the 2 boys they have employed for whatever purposes also were over there by the guards. The only other person was this boy Abdullah, who was working with Liedner and Emmett over by the corner by the stairs. Emmett had his eyes on him just about the entire time, except for when he went up there for the 10 minutes, during which time the boy went over to the rest of them by the guards. So it seems like that 10-minute span is the only time anyone could have gone through the courtyard unnoticed into Louise's room to kill her. And I do want to point out real quick that the person closest to Louise when this murder occurs is Miss Johnson. She's only 2 rooms down at this point. So she would have the easiest time getting from her location to Louise and back. So my money is still on her, but I'm also still suspicious of Father Levigny. Donning this monk's robe could also be hiding his body and his shape and make him less identifiable, but like his face is still there, so like she still sees him and knows that this isn't her husband, right? Although she did say she hadn't seen the man in like 15 years. Would she remember him? She's not sure, but I don't think he is the husband. I think it's more likely that Miss Johnson is. But why would Miss Johnson have joined these expeditions for 7 years when Dr. Liedner had only married Louise 2 years ago? Unless like he has just been living as a woman, like he transitioned and now is a she, like that could be a thing. Maybe that's too progressive for Agatha's mind to wrap around, so I don't hold much weight there. But yeah, now I'm starting to think, especially since Miss Johnson has been there for 7 years. She's not Dr. Bird, she's the not dead husband. Unless Dr. Bird is the not dead husband. I don't think it was explicitly stated whether she's been there for all of the past 7 years or if like she's just like been on some of them. I don't know. And I still don't know what a fucking bottle washer is. The fuck is that supposed to mean? Alright, so now let me put all these up on the board and we'll see how things are looking when I come back. Alright, y'all, I'm over halfway through, and I think I've got it figured out. So first, Miss Johnson says that she was facing the courtyard when the incident happened, so that if somebody walked past, she would have seen it. She also later claimed that she heard a yell or a shout or something, but later it's shown that if the sound had come from Louise's room, there's absolutely no way Miss Johnson could have heard her. Also, I came up with another possible motive for Miss Johnson. If I'm completely wrong about Miss Johnson and that she's not some cross-dresser, it's possible that she would have wanted to get Louise out of the way so she could have Dr. Liedner to herself. But I don't think that's where this is going. They finally suggest that Louise's first husband, Bosner, could be undercover in their staff. They specifically say that either him or his younger brother could be there, but since they put it as an either or, I'm like, but what if it was both? What if they were both there? And then, the clue that put it all together for me, hero worship. When they're talking about the first husband's younger brother, they say that the younger brother had hero worship towards his older brother. And we've only heard the mention of hero worship one other scenario, which was Miss Johnson toward the doctor. So that confirms for me that Miss Johnson is the younger brother. But then they're trying to figure out who the older brother, the actual first husband, could be. And they list a couple of people, but then I'm like, wait a minute, what about Dr. Liedner, her second husband? What if the second husband was also the first husband? That would explain the hero worship we see, because it's still the same act of the brother's devotion to his older brother. So now I am convinced beyond a doubt that the killers are Dr. Liedner and Miss Johnson as the Bosner brothers. The only thing I don't know for certain is which one of them did it, like the actual deed of hitting her over the head, but it's more likely going to be the younger brother, Miss Johnson, because she was much closer to the room, whereas the older brother, Dr. Liedner, was up on the roof. One other thing that was suspicious but irrelevant is, again, going back to the father. They're saying that he's known throughout the world, so, like, there's no way he isn't who he claims to be. But my question is he himself known throughout the world, or is just his work known? Does he show up in the tabloids? Do people know what he looks like? Probably not, because he's a monk. So this dude could easily have shown up and said he was Father Levany, even though he wasn't. That would explain why the translations haven't made a lot of sense, why he's sleeping in the afternoons instead of working, and whatever other confusing things have been going on. So yeah, he's suspect, but a red herring. The people who did it are Dr. Liedner and Miss Johnson. I am convinced. I'm gonna just bunker down and keep reading until we get to, like, reveal time, then I will come back. So, Miss Johnson's dead. Miss Johnson fell to the same old trick of, I think I might know something, but let me keep it to myself and think about it some more before I tell anybody. Like, no. If you're in one of these books, you tell people what you fucking know, or else you're gonna wind up fucking dead next, okay? Yeah, I did not see that coming. She swallowed hydrochloric acid. So you could say this throws a dent in my theory, but I don't think so. I could totally see the bigger brother using his little brother's loyalty and then disposing of him. So that's what I think has happened here. Also, now I think I have a better picture of what Father Levany is doing. I think he is a smuggler. When they were looking in some cabinet, they discovered that half of their supply of plasticine is missing. And, well, I don't know what that is, but I think they were using it in the restorations to help keep things together. And that goblet was waxy one day, and then this day it wasn't anymore. So I think that the goblet, somebody made a replica of it with plasticine, and I think that person is Father Levany. I've only got about 60 pages left, so I'm just gonna read this on camera for when the reveal happens. Oh, Poirot's figured it out. He just said, "Ah, fool that I have been, when the truth is so clear, so clear." Okay, Father Levany has gone missing now. I'm sure he's just run off with whatever he's stolen. Now they have found the murder weapon that killed Louise under Miss Johnson's bed. Okay, they're summoning everyone. It's time for the big reveal. See, there's another thing. Louise would receive a threatening letter from her first husband every time she started seeing another man, but she never received one when she started seeing Dr. Liedner, which I feel like further proves my theory. Oh, they're saying regarding the gas poisoning that the only people who could have done it were Dr. and Mrs. Liedner. So, what do y'all think? Am I right? Okay, so now they seem to be leaning toward Carrie. You know, they're saying that somebody could have come in through the front gates. The Cook and Company only swore that no stranger had entered. There are many successful female impersonators, you know. Young William Bosner might be something of that kind. I knew it. I told y'all. Did anyone at the expedition know Father Levany by sight before he came here? Apparently not. See, I told y'all that too. Someone impersonating the good father. Right, but he isn't Bosner. I know. It's Dr. Liedner. Come on. There it is. I regret to tell you, monsieur, that the gold cup in the Antica room, the gold dagger, the hair ornaments, and several other things are not the genuine articles found by you. Father Levany is none other than Raoul Meunier, one of the cleverest thieves known to the French police. And then, as I stood on the roof, going over in my mind those 3 points, the letters, the roof, the window, I saw, just as Miss Johnson had seen, and this time what I saw explained everything. The third alibi, Dr. Liedner's, was useless too. Not only could Liedner have committed the murder, but I was convinced he had committed it. Yes! Oh my gosh, I got it. I told y'all, bitches. Yes! Oh, Dr. Liedner could murder his wife from the roof without leaving it. Okay. Hit her through the window. So Miss Johnson did hear something. She poked her head out the window, and then he got her from the roof. And then later when he found the body, he just moved her. Oh, I didn't catch that. I saw my wife's body in a heap by the bed. For a moment or two, I felt paralyzed as though I couldn't move. So that was his excuse for why his reaction was delayed. The letters did not prevent her marrying Dr. Liedner. If Dr. Liedner is actually Frederick Bosner, I called it! Oh my gosh, like, I'm so relieved that I was correct in front of y'all. Like, oh, if I got it wrong, I would just be so embarrassed. I did it. The one thing that seems to be wrong about my theory was the brother relationship. Apparently, Miss Johnson wasn't the brother. So yeah, I read this and I figured it out. The whole cross-dressing thing was apparently a red herring, but it put me on the track I needed to go on to figure it out. Oh, I'm so happy I did it. Oh, I really enjoyed this one. I would definitely put it in top tier. Actually, let me just put it in my whole ranking list right now. Yeah, Murder in Mesopotamia is going really high on the list. It is in the top 15, which, I mean, 15 seems like a lot, but I mean, out of 70 something. So yeah, that is very good. I loved it. If we take a quick look at my Poirot list, this is now in 7th place, which again is still very good. Yeah, even higher than Five Little Pigs, which, you know, I loved. This was an excellent read. I really had fun with it. I loved the connection to Murder on the Orient Express at the very end. That was really clever. Oh, it was so good. And I figured it out. Oh my gosh. Doing all of this was so much fun, but it was also a lot of work. It made the reading take a lot longer than it usually would. Did y'all have fun watching this? Do you want me to do more things like this where I try to solve it on camera? If so, let me know in the comments below. And let me know what book you think I should do it for. Yay, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!